Let's talk about the Talmud. You probably picture this ancient, super dense book of Jewish law. But what if I told you it's also one of history's great literary masterpieces? That it has a hidden architecture as deliberate and beautiful as any grand cathedral? Okay, we're going to dive into this, because we are about to decode the secret blueprint behind one of the most influential texts ever created.
So, right off the bat, here's the central puzzle. If you just open the Talmud, it can feel like, well, chaos. It's a jumble of arguments, stories, and these wild digressions that seem to go on for thousands of pages with no clear plan. So how on earth does that become the foundational text, the intellectual home, the portable homeland, for a people for thousands of years?
The key, it turns out, isn't just the content. It's the structure. It's the poetics of it all. Scholars began to realize that the Talmud's editors weren't just scribes, writing everything down. No, they were brilliant literary artists. And understanding their design choices, well, that's the secret to unlocking what this text is really all about.
So, first, let's just get a feel for how overwhelming this whole body of work can seem. Because we're not talking about one book, it's more like a whole library. And it absolutely refuses to fit into any of our modern genres.
I mean, really, what is this thing? 1 minute it's a law code, the next it's telling you a folk tale, it's a record of case law, and then suddenly it plunges into a really deep theological debate. This constant shifting is totally intentional. It creates this feeling of a dense, multi-layered world. It's like a labyrinth that you're meant to get lost in and explore.
So, to navigate this maze, scholars really needed a new map. And in the late 20th century, there was this huge shift in thinking, something that's now called the literary turn. Basically, instead of treating the Talmud like a stenographer's transcript of old debates, scholars started seeing it as a deliberately crafted work of art. They figured out that the editors, these figures known as the Stamaim, were actively shaping, editing, and even creating dialogues to make very specific points. They were authors, not just collectors, a total game changer.
And this shift sparked a really fascinating debate. On one side, you had scholars like Yonah Fraenkel saying, hey, treat each story like a perfect, self-contained piece of art. Everything you need to understand it is right there inside the text. But then on the other side, scholars like Jeffrey Rubenstein argued, no, you can't understand a story without seeing how the editors changed it from earlier versions. For him, the real genius was in the editing itself.
Okay, so let's zoom in from the big idea to the micro level. If the Talmud is so deliberately designed, what does that design actually look like? What is the blueprint?
Well, the fundamental building block is something called a sugya. And a sugya is not just some rambling conversation. Think of it more like a Lego brick. It's a highly structured, almost formulaic unit of argument with a very clear beginning, middle, and end. It's less like a transcript and way more like a carefully composed piece of music.
And the main architectural tool they use to build a sugya is this brilliant device called a chiasmus. It's a fancy word for a mirrored structure, A, B, C, and then back out, B, A. You see this kind of thing in ancient epics like the Iliad, but the rabbis ingeniously adapted it for legal debate. And the whole point of this structure is to draw your eye to one thing, the center.
And this table just lays it out so perfectly. You start with an opening statement, that's A. Then you introduce a challenge, some conflicting source, that's B. And then, bam, right in the middle at C, you get the hinge. This is the conceptual core, the big idea that solves the whole problem. After that, it just mirrors itself on the way out. The new logic gets tested at B prime, and a final ruling closes the loop at A prime. It's literally an architecture for an argument.
So, and this is the most important part. The structure isn't just for show. It's not just to make it look pretty. It's a guide. It's like the Talmud has a giant flashing neon arrow pointing to the middle telling you, pay attention. The most important innovative idea is right here at the center. The form itself is telling you where to find the meaning.
But of course, the Talmud isn't all abstract logic. It's full of stories. And these stories aren't just little breaks for entertainment. They are a crucial part of the legal machine. In fact, they often show up to challenge or complicate the very laws being talked about. So let's look at the most famous example, the story of the oven of Aggadah. I mean, it is a truly dramatic standoff. You have one sage, Rabbi Eliezer, arguing a point of law against all the other rabbis. He just knows he's right, and he's willing to call on heaven itself to prove it. So what does he do? He starts performing these escalating miracles. First, a carob tree literally uproots itself and flies across a field. The other rabbis, not impressed. So then, he makes a river flow backward. They just shrug.
Finally, the very walls of the study hall start to collapse inward, as if to agree with him.
And at this moment of maximum supernatural pressure, the head of the academy, Rabbi Yehoshua, stands up and shouts this incredible line, "It is not in heaven." He is declaring that the authority to decide the law now rests with human reason and majority rule, not with divine signs and wonders.
So what was heaven's response to this absolutely stunning act of human chutzpah? Well, the story ends with this mind-blowing scene. God is described as laughing with joy, saying, "My children have defeated me." In this absolute masterpiece of a story, God himself validates the authority of human interpretation, even when it overrules a direct sign from him. Just incredible.
Now, to add one more layer here, it's really important to know that there isn't just one Talmud. Nope, there are two, and their literary styles are worlds apart. So on one hand, you've got the Jerusalem Talmud, the Yerushalmi. It's older, it's more concise, it almost reads like a set of lecture notes. It's focused on the practical stuff. What happened? What's the rule? But then you have the Babylonian Talmud, the Bavli, and it is expansive, it's dramatic, it's deeply psychological. It's way less concerned with what happened and much more obsessed with the theoretical why, the whole drama of the legal process itself.
This quote just nails it. The Babylonian Talmud reads like a novel at times, but the main character isn't a person. The hero is the intellect itself, as it struggles and wrestles with ideas to find clarity. And it's this version, the Bavli, with its rich novelistic texture, that became the central text of Jewish life.
So let's bring this all home. Why go to all this trouble? Why build a text with such a complex, interlocking literary architecture? What was the point?
This incredible design is what turns a book of laws into what's famously been called a portable homeland. Think about it. For a people often in exile, without a physical country, the text itself became their world. Its complex structures, its winding arguments, its stories, they aren't just things to be read. They create a space, a world that you can inhabit, explore, and live inside through the act of study.
And this, really, is the ultimate takeaway. The Talmud's architecture isn't designed for you to just sit back and absorb it. No way. It's built to be a conversation machine. The chiastic structures, the unresolved arguments, the stories that mess with the law, they all demand that you, the reader, become a participant. You have to jump into the debate, weigh the options, and in doing that, you actually help to complete the text.
Which leaves us with a pretty provocative question for our own time. The rabbis designed a text to build a world of deep, participatory argument. So if the architecture of a text can literally shape a culture, what does the design of our news feeds, our social media, our endless streams of content, what does that say about the world we're building for ourselves right now?